All right, let's dive in. Today, we're talking about a vessel that didn't just sail the seas, it completely owned them. We're getting into the story of the Viking longship, a true masterpiece of engineering that really was the key that unlocked an entire age of exploration, trade, and, yeah, conquest. This was so much more than just wood and nails. This was pure ambition, built to float.
But before you get the iconic dragon-headed prow, before the sails, before the voyages that literally redrew the map of the world, it all started right here, with an axe. Just think about that for a second. In a cold, dense forest in Northern Europe, the story of this incredible piece of technology begins with the simple, raw, and brutal act of felling a tree.
So, to really understand this ship, we have to start where the Vikings did, deep in those ancient forests. And they weren't just looking for any old log. No, they were searching for the perfect raw material, what they believed was the very soul of the ship that would carry them out into the great unknown. Building a longship was this amazing mix of high art and just brutal, back-breaking labor. First, you have to fell the giants, find and chop down enormous old-growth trees. Then came the really intricate shaping. Each plank was meticulously split and carved to follow the natural grain of the wood. This gave it unbelievable strength and flexibility. And finally, the grueling assembly, fitting every single piece of this massive puzzle together to create something that could actually survive the open ocean. But how did all that raw material and all that brutal work transform into one of history's greatest engineering marvels? Well, it all came down to a design that was, for its time, absolutely revolutionary. And this is a really key thing to understand. This wasn't just a boat for, fishing or moving some cargo around. This was a piece of advanced technology. You could even call it a weapon system. It was designed from the keel up for one single purpose: to dominate the water, and it didn't matter if that was a calm river or a raging North Atlantic gale.
So let's look at what made this design so special. It all started with a strong keel, the ship's backbone. Then they used what's called a clinker-built technique. Basically, each plank overlaps the one below it, which created a hull that was both incredibly strong and surprisingly flexible. And that long, narrow shape, it made the ship lightning fast. And, crucially, it meant it had a shallow draft, so it could land on pretty much any beach, giving the Vikings that critical element of surprise. Pulling this off required a level of skill and teamwork that was just astounding.
Okay, so the ship is built. But now the real test begins. This is where all that brilliant engineering and all that hard work gets pitted against the ultimate, unforgiving challenge, the open ocean. And this is the question, right? This is the question at the very heart of the Viking Age. I mean, think about it. You have no GPS, no modern charts, no satellite weather forecasts. How do you find the courage to point the nose of your ship toward a horizon that is nothing but water and sky, into a world you literally cannot see? You have to try and put yourself in their mindset. This was way more than a physical journey. It was a huge psychological leap. They were sailing off the edge of their known world, into seas that they believed were filled with monsters and endless danger. But here's the thing. A ship, no matter how perfectly engineered it is just an empty shell without its crew. And the human cost of these voyages, the demands placed on the men and women who sailed them, it's almost unimaginable to us today. When you really strip it all away, it comes down to one thing: sheer audacity. There's just no other way to describe the mindset it took. You needed more than skill with an oar to get on one of these ships. You needed a kind of boldness, a defiant courage that is, well, it's hard for us to even wrap our heads around. And that audacity was tested every single day, on two fronts. First, the physical demands were just immense. Constant, grueling rowing, getting battered by freezing waves and wind, often with very little food or shelter. And then there was the psychological strain. The constant, gnawing fear of the unknown, of getting lost in a storm, of just disappearing forever into an endless sea. The engineering of the longship is incredible, don't get me wrong, but this is the real story. The true price of conquering the waves was paid in human sweat and fear and sheer endurance. The legend of the longship is ultimately the legend of the people who were brave enough to sail it. So, in the end, the story of the Viking longship pushes us to ask a really timeless question. From exploring the ancient seas to exploring outer space, humanity has always pushed into the dangerous unknown. What is it that drives us? Is it glory? Is it wealth or knowledge? Or is it something else entirely? That thing that makes a massive endeavor actually worth the incredible risk?